This video lecture is on conducting research for a literary analysis essay. When it comes to conducting research for a literary analysis essay, your research process may be different from your research process with other papers or in other disciplines. The goal of research for literary analysis is to find and read critical analyses of the text that you are analyzing. For this paper, you're going to be reading about and analyzing Antigone, as well as a second text that you choose to compare thematically. The next goal is to use the analyses that you read as a starting point for your own analysis. So you will explore the ideas that are explored within those critical analyses and use that as a starting point for your own commentary. Research for literary analysis will take time. It will require advanced reading skills. It will show you what other people are saying about the text or texts that you are analyzing, and it will give you a starting point for your own commentary and analysis. So I want you to think about research for literary analysis as exploring conversations about these texts that are already happening. What are people saying, and what are their comments and their analyses showing you about these texts that you didn't see before? We'll look at two different sources for research for this paper. The first one is databases available through Holt Library or another library, for example, Western Carolina, as well as Google Scholar. On the library page under My SCC, we'll first go to the EBSCO Research Databases and click on Literary Reference Center. Once you click on Literary Reference Center, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. You can see there's different categories that you can look at. Most studied authors, most studied works, all authors. You can also look at featured collections. But often when you're starting your research for a particular text, I find that it's helpful to start with a keyword search and just to type in the name of the text. You can, of course, add other keywords to your search, for example, Antigone and oppression, but I think sometimes if you're not sure where to start with your analysis, it's helpful just to start with the title and to see what kinds of results that you get. So once I type in the title of the play and click search, I have all of these results. On the left side, I do want to use my options to refine the results. So I'll choose full text. So I'm given access only to the full text of articles. Remember that you should not quote from an abstract. You should only quote from a text if you have access to the full text. And it also gives you source types as well. If I scroll through these results, I can see they're pretty varied. Some of them are very specific, like the first result, finding Antigone in the woods of Poland. And then some of them are more general. When you scroll down, some of them list just the name of the play. And some of these sources will present only the play itself. However, others provide a summary as well as a critical analysis of the play. So for example, search result number 5 says a brief synopsis and critical analysis of Sophocles' Antigone. And search result number 6 says a summary and analysis of Antigone. So if I click on one of those results, I can see that it gives me the detailed record as well as the HTML full text. And remember, if you are given access to the PDF, always use access to the PDF because it will give you the original page numbers of the text, which you need for your in-text citations. But if I scroll down, it will give me principal characters, the story, as well as a critical evaluation. And although this is short, there's probably some very valuable content in here that discusses themes and then significant findings in the text. So you'll always want to look at the critical analysis or critical evaluation and look at those ideas and see if those ideas are ones that you can apply to Antigone as well as a second text in your essay. Of course, if I decide to use this text, while I'm here, I should go ahead and email it to myself using the tool over here on the right-hand side of the page. And I should also use the citation tool. Now remember, for literary analysis essays, we always use MLA. MLA is appropriate for that discipline. So I would scroll down, highlight the MLA citation, and copy and paste it onto my Works Cited page. A second option, besides exploring critical analyses of the play itself, is to explore critical analyses of a text that I'm interested in comparing to Antigone. For example, I've had students in the past who have compared the young adult novel The Hunger Games to the play Antigone. So instead of starting with research of Antigone, I can actually start with research of the second text that I would like to compare it to Antigone and do the same thing. I'm going to look for critical readings or critical analyses, see what kinds of ideas the authors of those analyses are exploring, and see if I can apply those ideas to the text itself as well as to the play Antigone. So this one is called Game Macabre, Fear as an Essential Element in the Hunger Games. And this looks interesting to me because fear is definitely a motif that we see within the Hunger Games, but it's also a motif that we see in Antigone as well. So with this article, I have access to the PDF full text. So when I click on that, it's a pretty long critical analyses, but I'm sure there are some interesting ideas in here. And you'll see if you look at the PDF, it gives you the original page numbers that you need to use for your in-text citations. So I could read this text and see what the author is saying about fear within the Hunger Games, and then also consider how I might apply those same ideas to the play Antigone. So I'd want to scroll through here and see if I could pick out a quote in which the author is talking about fear within the Hunger Games. And it should be a quote that I can use in my essay as a starting point for my own critical analysis. Now remember, if you'd like to use this text, go ahead and email it to yourself, and also use the citation tool so that you can get your citation for your Works Cited page. Okay, so we've explored Literary Reference Center Plus, and now we're going to look at some of the resources available to you through NC Live. Many of you used NC Live for your first two essays, but we're going to approach the search a little bit differently. Over on the right-hand side of the page, you can search by subject. Under subjects, you'll see books and literature listed at the top. When you click books and literature, you can scroll down and see all of these different resources that you can use to conduct research for your literary analysis essay. Some of them are going to be a little bit too specific. For example, 20th century American poetry. So you wouldn't be able to necessarily use that database to conduct research for this paper. However, there are some other more broad databases. For example, Gale Literary Sources. Once here, I can see this page that says Discover Literary Works, Authors, and Criticism. And I can do the same thing that I did through Literary Reference Center. I can just start with the name of the play. When you get results through Gale Literary Sources, you can see that they're labeled clearly. So what I want to look for are critical essays. And right here it says full text critical essay. This one says full text work overview critical essay. So I can scroll through these titles and I can read the summaries and see if any of them look interesting or useful to me. If I click on this one, I can scroll down and see that there's an introduction, biographical information, plot and major characters, but there's also a discussion of major themes in the text. So again, I'd want to read through this section and see what the author is exploring in terms of themes. And I'd want to see, is there anything interesting here that I could apply to Antigone and add to? And is there anything in here that I could apply to a second text as well? Again, over here we have our citation tools, so you'd want to get your MLA citation for your Works Cited page. And I always recommend emailing it to yourself. And Gale Literary Sources gives you the option to also send it to Google Drive. So just make sure that you save it in some way, shape, or form so that you can access it again when you're working on your paper. Going back to NC Live, Literature Resource Center is a good one. So is ProQuest Learning Literature. And Arts and Humanities database. And of course, I encourage you to explore these other databases as well. And you can look for critical analyses on Antigone or on the second text that you know you would like to compare to Antigone in your essay. Okay, the final source that we're going to look at is Google Scholar. Now, do remember with Google Scholar, a lot of the times your search results are going to be very limited. You might only be given access to a small portion of the text or to the abstract. And if you're only given access to a small portion of the text, you need to make sure you have enough that you can actually quote from. And you should not just quote from an abstract. Make sure you're only quoting from a text if you actually have access to part of the full text itself. So I can start with just a general search on Antigone, or I can add a second term to my search like Antigone and oppression or Antigone and civil disobedience. So if I'm looking for specific ideas within the text, I can do a more specific keyword search with my Boolean operator and. And then I can go ahead and take a look at these results. So you'll see some of these will link to databases and you might not be able to access the full text, but some of them may give you access to a PDF that you can take a look at. So I would encourage you to use Google Scholar to explore, especially if you're not having any luck through the databases available through Holt Library. But just do be aware that Google Scholar has its limitations and you'll often run into roadblocks when you're trying to find text that way. Also with Google Scholar, you'll have to build your own works cited entries. So you can use a writer's reference to make sure you're including all of the information that your works cited entry should have. So keep in mind, the key with research for literary analysis is to go in with an open mind, to go in and look at what other writers are saying about the text that you're interested in analyzing, and to use their ideas to build your own analysis, add to what they're already saying about the text, and then also apply those ideas to the second text that you choose. If you're really struggling with research and you're not having any luck, there's a note over here on the library tab under My SCC. It says, haven't found the information you need within 30 minutes, please ask for help. Contact an SCC librarian. I really encourage you to reach out to our reference librarians. They are wonderful. They will sit down and they will help you with your research. They will help you find sources. So ask for help when it comes to the research process. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always email me.